I get asked this question a lot. What on earth should I be practicing or working on a daily or weekly basis? So many students are so confused about the process of practice, but the good news is that there is actually a recipe for practice that is pretty much guaranteed to help you make progress. And today, I'm going to share that with you. For those of you who don't know yet, my name is Tatiana. This is the Flute Practice, a space to help you on your flute playing journey. I do want to say that this is not my recipe, rather this is a recipe that I've received from my teacher, and he probably received it from his teacher, and so on and so forth. But it is a recipe that is used by top teachers and top music schools around the world to help students progress really quickly and effectively. Now, I have adapted this system a little bit because I know that many of you are not full-time music students that have hours and hours and hours to practice. So I've broken this down into a system that is hopefully going to fit in with your crazy and busy life schedule. Okay, the system is made up of 6 key components and 1 optional extra that I like to include. And of course, we're going to start off with our good warm-ups. Now, here's the big myth about warm-ups. We think that warm-ups is just playing long tones or doing some kind of slow tone work. But warming up could really be anything from, and I definitely suggest that you do physical exercise, so actually doing some nice kind of movements to just get everything going, to playing some nice scales slowly or even with a little bit of speed already, to playing your favorite melodies, to improvising. I have a lovely scale system that I love to warm up on, and I've got a whole video of different warm-up ideas that I am going to link you to. You can go check that out down below, or right now it's going to come up in this corner up here. But go and find some kind of a system that you enjoy. This is important because it kind of gets everything going, gets all your muscles moving, and very often just very practically just warms up your instrument and gets your instrument in tune and ready for the day. Component number 2, your scales and arpeggios. You guys know how much I believe in scales and arpeggios, and if you hate doing these, I know you're not alone, but just challenge yourself to do 1 scale a day, just 1, and the arpeggio along with it. So that's all you're going to do, just 1 good scale and 1 arpeggio. If you can just take out just a few minutes for this, it's going to go a long way. The important thing about scales and arpeggios is that you don't have to be doing all your majors and all your minors in one go. In fact, you can just learn the first 2 to 3 scales when you're starting out and gradually add 1 at a time until you've learned all of them. But actually, only when you're a really advanced player will you be playing all your majors and minors. So if you've only learned your majors up to kind of like 2 sharps and flats, or maybe 3, and you're kind of stuck there, that is okay. It's very normal to get stuck at that point. In time, you'll kind of keep going through these scales and start adding more and more sharps and flats. Component number 3 is technique or technical exercises. I say technique a bit more broad because sometimes we think of technical exercises only being like that finger moving fast stuff that you have to do, you know, your tafel gobers and all of that. But actually, technique is a little bit more broad than that. It includes articulation. It actually includes tone work, which we'll get to in a moment. It includes things like vibrato practice, breathing practice, any of the tools that you need to play the flute and to play it well. Very important with your technical exercises, you want to find exercises that are level appropriate. So don't go and choose things that are way too difficult for you. You want to find things that are giving you a bit of a challenge, yes, but are not completely out of your possibilities. The 4th component are your long tones. Now, I've separated this out into its own category, although it really belongs to technique and technical practice. But because it's so important and we forget about it, I'm making it its own category. And I encourage you spend just 5 minutes a day practicing long tones. Seriously, just 5 minutes, maybe even 3 minutes. Just do a couple of them. They're wonderful to do. And as you can see, I'm putting it at the 4th spot. So I don't necessarily think that you have to do long tones as your warm-up. You could, but often I actually prefer to do them near the end of my practice day because I find them really exhausting. And so I find it much more useful to do it when I'm tired, and then I can kind of just relax into them. Sometimes just before bed even, you do some nice long tones, go to sleep. It's wonderful. So those are your first 4 components, and that first block really is all about technique and building your possibilities on the flute. And then we get onto the more musical side of things. Now, of course, I know you're tempted to jump into playing your pieces, and we're going to get there in a moment. But there is this little in-between step that a lot of students don't know about and forget about. And those are your studies or etudes. For those of you who don't know what these are these short, well, sometimes not so short, but these little kind of pieces of music that are musical, so they're actually kind of have phrases and they're meant to be music, but they usually have very specific technical issues in them. So I like to think of studies and etudes kind of as a bridge between your boring, kind of really monotonous technical exercises and your pieces of music or your kind of artistic, beautiful pieces that often require a massive range of different technique and skills to play. So for example, you might have an etude that is focused just on articulation and it has like a whole lot of like tongued passages in it. Or you might have one that is just trills all the way through. Those are a special kind of torture, but they are so necessary and so good. And for this, I recommend you do one etude a week. One. Just one. If you can do more, great. Most of us don't have time for that. But just choose one, work on it for a week, get it done, and move on. For less advanced players, you might want to do one etude over 2 weeks. There's nothing wrong with that. That is absolutely okay. As you progress, you're going to pick up this pace a little bit. But in order to do one etude a week, you want to find etudes that are simple enough for you to master. And if you are struggling to find etudes that are less advanced, because there are so many advanced etudes, but not that many less advanced ones, well, we have got a resource where we put together some of these etudes for you. They're called Let's Practice. I'm actually busy working on another secret surprise project around etudes, but I'll tell you guys about that another time. Then your sixth component, finally, the stuff that you probably got into flute playing for, your pieces and your repertoire. And of course, this is the stuff that makes your heart beat and that you like live for and love for and why you want to play your flute. Absolutely. But we need those 5 other steps to get us to a place where when we're playing our pieces, we can just express ourselves with joy, with freedom, with creativity. Now, I have got a 7th little block and I'm going to get to that at the end of this video, but I just want to stop at the next big question you're probably asking at this stage, which is like, okay, great. So these are the 6 things I should be working on, but how much of each do I do? Like, how do I balance my practice? How on earth am I going to manage to do all 6 of these things in like 30 minutes, which is realistically what many of you probably only have time for in a day, if even that. And to that, I'm going to answer, it kind of depends. So let's take a step back here for a moment. The first 5 practice units are really about building your technique, building your foundations, and building your skills. These are the things that are going to help you to grow and stretch and kind of push you and ultimately progress. But they have a catch side, and that they don't always encourage the joy and the love of playing. And so if we just do this all the time or do too much of this, sometimes we get really discouraged and we kind of lose our love for the music. On the other hand, we have your pieces, your music, and I mean, most of us just love playing this. If you haven't discovered Domplay yet and haven't gone on like a Domplay rant where you just play through a whole bunch of fun stuff on Domplay, well, go check out our Domplay links down below. It's a great space to do just that. But this is kind of the stuff that you live for, just making the beautiful music. And this is really important too. Like, it will help you to progress and grow, probably not as much as the technical work, but the big job of your pieces is to actually grow your creative self, to grow your love and passion for the instrument and for music on the whole. And we always want to balance these 2 things out very carefully. And sometimes you're going to want to spend more time in the technical area and kind of push your skills, and other time you're going to want to rather feed your love and spend more time with that. And so this is going to determine the ratio of your practice a little bit. So for example, if you're having a week where you want to grow your kind of skills a bit more, you might spend 60 or 70% of your time in those first 5 blocks of practice and maybe only 40 or 30% of your time in the pieces. On the other hand, if you want to really just be kind of having fun and growing your love for the instrument, you're going to want to spend maybe 60 or 70% of your time with your pieces rather. There's also other like requirements, like sometimes you have band things coming up and you have to spend your time practicing your band music and your repertoire. But let's break this down into kind of like an average practice day, if there is such a thing. So say you have like 30 minutes to practice in a day, and you want to have kind of a balanced practice routine, so you want to have a bit of fun but also grow. Here's a great little recipe for you to follow. So you can do 5 minutes of long tone warm up. Let's do that. So now you've kind of hit your long tone practice and your warm up. Alternatively, you could do 5 minutes of slow scales or medium to slow scales. So then you're kind of practicing your scale and warming up at the same time. So you can see I'm kind of hitting 2 birds with 1 stone there, which is really great. Then you'll spend 5 minutes with a nice technical exercise. You'll choose a nice technical exercise to work on. Now, this could also just be a scale or a scale exercise. So maybe if you did the long tone warm up, you could do a nice scale exercise next. Again, multiple birds, 1 stone situation. Now you're going to spend about 5 to 10 minutes working on a study of your choice, and you're going to be really smart about this time and not just play through the study again and again. We've got a video for you in a moment. And then for the last 10 to 15 minutes, you're going to have some fun with your piece, either learning the notes, polishing things up, playing through it. And maybe you want to break that up into kind of like 2 sections where you spend 10 minutes just doing some really nice constructive work and 5 minutes of just having some really good fun. That would be a really good, healthy practice routine. If you did that on a daily or almost daily basis, I think you would make some really good progress over time. Now there's one other little corner I want to speak about, which is my actually 7th optional 7th practice block, which is what I call the Playtime Corner or the Problem Corner. And in this space, you're going to take those tricky passages, those things that you are struggling with, or perhaps you're working on your tone and you're just kind of trying new things out. You're kind of putting them into what I call the sandbox space, where you're just kind of exploring and experimenting with something different. And you're going to spend just 5 minutes right at the end of your practice day on that, in that wonderful space. I love to have this space because sometimes we get so busy in kind of the pieces and the studies and the scales that we don't take time to just become aware and solve our little technical issues. So carving out this little bit of extra time at the end of your practice is a great way to slowly start chipping away at some of your personal technical challenges in a playful, fun way. But we also have got our practice journal, which you can go check out. And in this practice journal, I not only help you to create your own practice plan, but we have much more detailed descriptions of what you should be practicing and how to practice it. Now, if you want some more help with your practice, I'm going to encourage you to go and watch this video right over here on creating a wonderful practice strategy, or the video right here below it, which will help you to kind of learn a piece of music more quickly and effectively. Happy practicing, and I'll see you guys soon.